Hello everybody, and welcome to Tommageddon, a show where all different kinds of multimedia will meet their day of reckoning. I'm your host, Tom. You know what's awesome? Slaying vampires. Who doesn't love a good vampire slayer? Just take a look at Old Honest Abe here. Everybody loves him. Well, except for that one guy. And to slay vampires, you need the right tools for the job. So let's crack open the old vampire hunting kit and see what we've got. An unmarked tube of liquid, probably holy water. A whip. A whip? Those aren't meant to kill stuff, they just hurt a lot. I feel like that would be especially ineffective against the undead because they don't really feel pain to begin with. Unless you soak it in holy water or something, I suppose that would work. Finally, we've got our leather skirt. Wait a minute. That's not right. I think I grabbed the wrong box. Who got my vampire killing stuff? Anyway, in case you couldn't tell, we're talking about Castlevania, one of my favorite game franchises, with a ton of different games to choose from on all different kinds of platforms, still going strong after over 30 years. There's just so much to cover when it comes to Castlevania that I figure it's best to start simple with the very first game in the franchise, simply titled Castlevania. It was released by Konami back in 1986 in Japan, and then saw its US release in May of 1987. The game takes place in the year 1691, and you play as the original dominatrix, Simon Belmont, as he undertakes a sacred quest to whip the piss out of Dracula. The basic rundown of the plot is every 100 years, Dracula's castle just kind of appears, and Big Daddy Vampire starts drinking bitches. So Simon decides to put a stop to it. My headcanon, however, is an entirely different story. See, Death here decided to throw Dracula a totally bitchin' party, and figured it would be fun to hire some strippers. Then this guy burst out of the cake and shit got way too real. Can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that Death, the literal grim fucking Reaper, plays second fiddle to Dracula here? The unstoppable force of Death itself is a fucking speed bump on the way to fight goddamn Dracula! Also, I have to imagine the ramifications of killing Death itself would be fairly staggering. People living forever, unable to die, madness in the streets as people try out their newfound immortality, only to subsequently realize that means they're trapped forever on this mortal coil, never knowing the sweet release of death! As a side note, I think it fair to mention that immortality does not necessarily mean invincible. Anyway, in this game you've got your usual cast of horror movie-themed monsters. A giant bat, Medusa, Frankenstein's monster and what I imagine is supposed to be Igor, the Mummy Twins, the Grim Reaper, and of course, Dracula. Between boss fights, you encounter some pretty interesting enemies, like your standard zombies, ghosts, fishmen, evil dogs, animated suits of armor, and Medusa heads? One of these things is not like the other. By far the most annoying enemies in the game are these hoppy little fuckers called flea men. Seriously, fuck these guys. Jumping all around like they own the damn place. Well, you don't! Dracula does! So sit the fuck down! Done with your shit! Fucking done! Little pieces of shit! Ah! I just can't shake the feeling that a whip is probably the worst weapon for undead slaying. I think I've got Simon's plan figured out here. He's not gonna kill Dracula. It's common knowledge that he'll come back every 100 years anyway. He's just gonna make it so Dracula doesn't wanna come back. It's time to return to the mortal realm, my lord. I would really rather not. Belmont's just going to whip me in the dick. You kind of start feeling bad for the guy. I mean, he's even a family man. He's got a son, one that he named after himself. But backwards. Holy shit, that's inspiring. Think I'm gonna name my kid Samot. Wait, that sounds pretty awesome. Kinda defeats the purpose of the joke. Let's just cut that. The boss fights in this game are generally pretty fun, each one providing its own challenge and having its own gimmick. Though, honestly, I didn't have any trouble with them until the fight with Frankenstein and Igor. Igor is invincible and bounces around the room, hurling fireballs at you while you're trying to fight Frankie. The best tactic I've found is just to bum rush Frank and whip the crap out of him before Igor really has a chance to get the ball rolling. Death is by far the hardest fight, made even worse by the fact that the room leading up to him is considered one of the hardest in the game, where you have to defeat these two axe-throwing armor guys while Medusa heads fly down the hall and try and wreck your shit. Then Death himself spawns a bunch of flying scythes you have to dodge while he merrily skips around the room. The fight is much easier if you have holy water, but I didn't. I just had to whip him in the junk and hope his flying blades of death didn't take me out in the process. In comparison, the fight with Dracula is really easy, even though Drac has two forms. The first form, he just chucks fireballs at you. You jump over him, whip him in the head, wash, rinse, repeat until his head flies off. Then he turns into a giant bat demon. Look at that Dracula! Shoots fireballs too, but it also tries to jump on your head. You can stun it with some holy water, then whip it in the head when it's stuck in place. It goes down like a fat kid alone on a seesaw. You can pick up a ton of different upgrades and secondary weapons. First off, the whip upgrades. They kinda put my misgivings to bed. I mean, a whip won't do all that much, but this thing, well, that'll do it! Puts the kill in Vampire Killer! The secondary weapons you can find include a silver knife, pretty useful for killing things you don't want getting too close, like the damn flea man! An axe, which is great for taking down flying enemies. Holy water, which creates a flame on the ground and damages anything that walks into it. Yes! Feel the wrath of my holy napalm. A cross, which works like a boomerang, and finally a stopwatch. It stops time. I don't think that's how you watch. You can also get money and little hearts that serve as ammunition for your weapons. Heart equals knife? Why heart not equal health? Well, that's okay though, because you can replenish your health by eating meat. Meat that's been bricked up in the walls, sitting there for God only knows how long. Simon! My boy! That's not something you should be putting in your mouth.
Okay, everybody, if you see something that you want to eat, before you do anything, remember this song. Don't you put it in your mouth.
It's probably like 99.9% disease at this point. Not to mention the size of it. Beef shank is bigger than Simon's legs. He just goes and horks it down in a fraction of a second. Forget Dracula. Simon's true enemy is congenital heart failure. Stay tuned for the sequel, Castlevania 2, Simon's Gastric Bypass! So, long story short, I love this game. The gameplay is smooth, the levels are fun, the bosses are challenging, the graphics are probably what's held up the worst over the years, and they're still not awful for a 2D platformer. The one real downside is that there are no save files, so you have to complete the entire game in a single run, which, depending on your level of skill, could take anywhere from a half an hour to the several hours I spent just fighting death. If you love platform games, and you haven't played the original Castlevania yet, I would strongly suggest trying to find yourself a copy and giving it a go. You know, I realize that so far I've reviewed 2 games that I love, so I feel like it's time for a little change of pace. Join me for the next episode where I review a really terrible movie. I've been Tom, and thanks for watching Tommageddon!